into the conversation. Go ahead and get comfortable. We're going to have a good Powernomics discussion. As you know, you guys know typically Thursday is our Powernomics day here on the Black Financial Channel and Dr. Boyce TV. But today, actually, we're making an exception. We're actually going to do our Powernomics conversation a day early. And the person that I get the opportunity to speak with and the pleasure and the honor is the one and only Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. So Dr. Anderson, I'd like to ask you, sir, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm hoping to get better and richer.
Better and richer. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, well, you know, I tell you, I've been sitting here this week watching a lot of what's going on in the political landscape, you know, with the Trump trade war. I know a lot of my students, a lot of people that follow us have been paying close attention to that. We've got a lot of investors in here. If you're an investor, raise your hand, say something, let everybody know that you are an investor, because we want to make investing very, you know, a powerful move in the Black community. The investing is going to be big. So if you're an investor, just say something real quick. Say, I'm an investor. That way everybody can know what you represent, what your family represents. All right, so yeah, there you go. Desaria says, I'm an investor. Okay, and I see a bunch of other people saying the same thing. I see Marie Taylor and Verita and Ingrid and Beaming Bohemian. Good to see you. All right, so some of you are watching on the blackfinancialchannel.com. Some of you are watching on drboycetv.com. Some of you are watching on Facebook. Wherever you are, if you can hit the thumbs up button, please hit the thumbs up button. Please hit the share button, subscribe button, and all that good stuff, so we can go ahead and get this started. Some of you were also in our investing seminar, stage 1 last night. I hope others will consider joining. It's an amazing program. Feel free to go to drboyceseminars.com if you want to sign up. It's not too late. You can still get the recording. All right, so Dr. Anderson, let's start off with some you. I always like to know what's on your mind, because I like to see what you're passionate about that day. And then I bring in what's on my mind as far as like what I was reading. Usually I'll meditate a little bit. I pull out the Black Economic Bible, Powernomics, and I like to read sections that I've already read and read them again and really pick up the insights in the book. But let me ask you this. You were talking earlier about Black people, about us not really knowing who we are and from a political standpoint. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest drawbacks to our being an empowered and an independent and self-sufficient and competitive peoples, because we don't know who we are. We don't know who we are, and I've tried my best to tell Black folk that you are exceptional people, special people. You should never allow yourself to be compared to anyone else. And because you don't proclaim or recognize your exceptionality, everything you're supposed to be, you give it away. You have no group self-interest because you can't identify what your interests are and who you are. And that goes all the way back through history. That's why they don't have any wealth. And what's happening now in these cities through gentrification. That goes all the way back through the history of mankind. As an instance, Dr. Watkins, see, God made man and put him on the earth. And Black folk were the first people established on this earth. And God created a Eve for them, a Garden of Eden for them. And where they put it, he gave it into Africa, installed it in Africa for Black people. What did that do? That made Black folk the richest continent and the richest human beings on earth, because Africa is the richest continent. They had it all, but they didn't recognize who they were. And they spent most of their time talking about tribalism and what religion they're going to adopt as the Muslims invaded them and started conditioning them to be Muslims instead of being who they really were. When they first came to earth, they were the first people on earth. And initially, their religion was what? It was ancestor worship, because they came from because God says, I will make you in my image and our image. And that was ancestor worship. But then, so that made Black folk also the first Jews on earth. So guess what? They gave, not only did they give away their self-interest, but they also gave away their religion. And the Jews nowadays, they are people who kidnapped, hijacked, and the Jewish religion, and now they're the Jews, and instead of the Black folk who were the original Jews on earth. In Africa, and Black folk had a chance to maintain the richest continent on earth and have some wealth. And see, by 1886, while they're messing around, arguing, debating about Christianity versus Islam, then they set up the German Berlin Conference in 1886, and they came in and divided the country up and renamed the whole country. Instead of Black folk now being original Black people, all of a sudden they renamed all of Africa. by dividing it up. Every European nation came in and carved Africa up and took a piece of it and stuck a name on it. And guess what? Those black folk then surrendered their own nationality, originality, and accepted those names. Now I'm a Zimbabwe. I'm now from a Nigerian. I'm now a Kenyan. See, all of a sudden they still don't know who they are. They've adopted the names that they came from the Berlin Conference in 1886, and they don't have any wealth. Now let me go back. Give me a few more minutes to explain this to you now. So so when it came out of slavery, that point in time, and the black folk had been stripped of any names at all except the names that the white folk had given them all the way back through history when they took over Africa and everything else. But guess what? In 1886, when they about 6 or 7 years out of slavery, they had the land. Let me show you how the wealth was now distributed then. They had the last land rush in America in 1882. They said, now we're going to bring in all these Europeans into America. Now that Civil War is ended and black folk are supposedly free, but they don't know they're black. They don't know who they are. So what we're going to do then, we're going to start giving everybody, we're going to invite all these Europeans to come to America and give them all the land they want. So they had an 1882 land rush. All the Europeans rushed into this country, and they all lined up along the Mississippi River and said, now in 24 hours, you can rush out and get as much land as you can get as far as you can see. Land is wealth. 90% of the value in this country is based in land and all the resources in that land. And so at that point in time, a few blacks in 1882 says, well, we just came out of slavery. We didn't get 40 acres of a mule. Can we get some land? Now watch this now. The federal attorney general for the United States put out a proclamation, and edict says black people are not entitled to any land. We just denied them 40 acres of mule. They said, why not? They said, because the land is going to be given away this time to all Europeans, be given to people of color. That means anybody coming from the Middle East and Hispanics and everybody else, they could get land, and also the Indians could get land. But black folk could not get land because the Attorney General of the United States in 1882 put out an edict that says black folk are not people of color. So they couldn't get land. So the Europeans that came in, they picked up, I know I'm boring you on with some of this stuff, though, but the Europeans picked up over 2 million acres of land in 24 hours going across the Mississippi River. That's all the value, the gas, the oil, the chrome, the bauxite, the gold and silver. Those Europeans picked up over again, 2 million acres of free land with all the minerals and resources and timber and everything on it in 24 hours. The same time when they go across the Mississippi River, they brought in the railroads. Same time, you brought in 12 railroad lines. They gave those railroad lines 6 miles of free land on both sides of the tracks across the United States. So those 12 railroad lines picked up over 24 million acres of free land. And all this land they're picking up now is inheritable. It's locked into their culture and their race. That's where all your resources are. Your gold, your silver, the chrome, the bauxite, the magnesium, the oil, the timber is all locked into that land. So now the Europeans picked it up, and black folk, and so did the railroads. But black folk didn't pick up anything because they didn't know who they were. They were trying to figure out, they said, well, we got to be something. Oh, we're not qualified to be people of color. They said, no. So by 1909, guess what happened? The white folks said, since we've been lynching blacks, like 2 black folk a day by the early 1900s, they said black folk need a name. So white folks came together, about 5 white folks came together and organized what they call NAACP, the National Organization for Colored People. So now black folk are gonna try to go back, so they didn't get a damn thing in 1882 because they weren't qualified to be people of color. They're now gonna make themselves people of color by setting up the NAACP, okay? And which means for colored people. So that's how black folk wound up being colored people, because they wanted to go back and get something because they were denied something originally, because they weren't, and the whites were saying, well, you all are Negroes. And so black folk then started being Negroes up until about 1928. And here's where the last game came in. 1928, black folks started demanding, says, we want something, we want independence and some social economics for dependence for Negroes. And guess what? All of a sudden, your black overclass jumped into that. And they switched black folk from getting in resources. The black ministers, the black newspapers, and the black civil rights leaders then switched that. And if you look in the Powernomics book, there's a section there saying, did Martin Luther King hurt black folk? And did the civil rights movement injure black folk? Yes, because then they switched it off and says, instead of getting social and economic independence and get some of the resources, the wealth, the power and land that have been denied black folk all through since slavery, when they didn't get the 40 acres and a mule, and were not allowed to participate in the land grabs and land rushes, they said, no, let's not talk about it for black folk. So they switched the whole thing, but Martin Luther King led that whole thing to say, now we can only fight for resources for everybody. And so therefore, black folk didn't get anything out of that. So by the civil rights movement 1960s, blacks were no longer classified as being Negroes. They started being classified as minorities and people of color, diversity, multicultural. And that's why they don't get a damn thing now. That's the whole track it all the way through to show you they don't know who they are. And they better start identifying that they are special people, exceptional people. And the worst thing that can happen to them that inflicts a further injury and is an insult to them by pretending that somehow black folk have not been maltreated or mistreated differently from any other people in this country. They don't understand that the immigrants come to this country, that came in this country is from European societies and from Hispanics in Latin America and from Asia came in this country after the Civil War. They are freeloaders. They're coming here to get freeload, to get unearned benefits. None of them, contrary to all the BS you hear in the media and the movies, no immigrants come to this country looking for a right to vote. They're not coming here looking for no damn jobs. They're not coming here looking for no religious opportunities. They come here to get enrichment as much as they can. And those benefits that were denied black folk all the way through history are now locked into white society. They want some of that to send back out of the country. That's why in a typical year, Western Union will ship, one year they shipped over $59 billion to Mexicans out of the United States back to Latin America. So all the things that black folks should be getting, they're not getting it because they let themselves be locked in these broad categories, searching for a name, don't know who they are. I say you're exceptional people. You're never gonna get a damn thing, and that's why these cities are gonna be gentrified. All these cities in Washington DC used to be Chocolate City. They don't call it Chocolate City anymore. They call it Vanilla City now. When I came to Washington DC with President Carter, Washington DC was 78% black. Now it's down about somewhere between the mid 40s. So black can get wiped out, gentrified in every major city. They don't know who they are. They use all these very broad names like NAACP, National Organization of Colored People. Black folk are not in that. That's why in Detroit, Michigan, about 2 weeks ago, the NAACP said they do not represent black people. And Julian Bond, and when he's announced it back in 2004, also on National Public Radio, says NAACP does not represent black folk. You say National NAACP does not stand for black folk. Black folk are not classified as colored people. Not today, nor were they in 1882. Urban League, another broad term. Who in the hell is Urban League? No black, they don't know who that is. See, none of these other organizations that blacks are competing against, they know who they are to get wealth and power and resources. The Jews name every organization for Jews. Asians name all their organizations for Asians. Arabs name all their organizations for Arabs. And Hispanics name all their for Hispanic. Only black folks use these very broad, ambiguous terms. That's why they never get anything. They don't know who they are. That's why I was trying to create a Us Too movement to look out specifically and solely for black people. We are special people, exceptional people, and I defy anybody to try to justify why they're equating everybody in this country to black folk who are the original people in this country. 99% of them are here before all the other people ever arrived.
All right, everybody. In case you just came in, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson, author of Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. His website is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. As summer is coming, I think a good project for you to give your children, maybe offer them $20 to do it, maybe 30. It'll be worth it. It'll be worth $1 million to them over the course of their lifetime. It'll be more valuable than any form of education they'll ever get. But give them some money, offer them some kind of reward, and say, I'll give you a reward for reading a chapter of Powernomics, right? And then have a conversation with them about that chapter. So maybe it's $10. Maybe it's not, or maybe you don't have to give them anything. Maybe you're lucky. I know that with kids, you got to motivate them in different ways. But I will tell you, if you get your children thinking this way early, then they will be committed to protecting the community later on down the line. When they get power and money, they're going to bring that back to the community. They're going to be proud to be black. They're not going to be running away from blackness. The reason we have so many black folks, they have so much money, they run away from blackness, is because nobody put it in them early that their community is important. In fact, Dr. and by the way, everybody, hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please hit that thumbs up button also. That's very, very important. Everybody, right now, on the count of 3, hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button if you're on Facebook. 1, 2, 3. Thumbs up, share, please thumbs up, share. So Dr. Anderson, let me ask you a question. There was, speaking on that issue, this morning I did a conversation on the channel about this rapper named Drake, who's a good rapper, a good guy, nice guy. Drake, but you know how the rappers do. The rappers like to show how much money they got, so he on Instagram, he puts a picture of his new private jet called Air Drake. And this private jet costs $187 million, $187 million. Now, here's what's interesting about what he said, right? He said, I'm really proud to support local Canadian businesses. And that's why he was really proud to buy this $187 million jet, because he was proud to support local Canadian businesses because he's from Canada. But his music is from America. His music came from Black folks, right? Rap came from us. We invented rap. He's making money off of rap. So I said, you hear this man who made hundreds of millions of dollars off of rap, which came from us, bragging about how he's proud to support local Canadian businesses with $187 million. But you ain't never heard him nor any rapper ever say, I'm proud to go do $187 million worth of business with the African-American community, without whom I would have nothing, without whom I wouldn't even have a single record, without whom I'd be an accountant somewhere. I'd be, off doing people's taxes or something. You never hear that. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit? In terms of, just
yes,
why
I will.
that infuriated me.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it dovetails into what I just got through telling you. See, the issue is really Black people. I blame Black folk for that's stupidity on Black folk part, not on his part, because as I just indicated to it. See, the question should be raised is that all these Blacks are rapping when they should be mapping. There's a difference between rapping and mapping. See, Black folk are running around rapping while all the other groups that are doing Black folk in, pimping and hustling Black folk and displacing Black folk and corrupting the civil rights concepts and all the benefits, the 14th Amendment that should have gone to Black folk. Black folk are rapping instead of putting their minds to map and say, what in the hell's happened to us? Why have we been 460 years in slavery and semi-slavery? It's because you're busy rapping instead of mapping. Now, you notice what you said about that individual. He says that he places the greatest importance on the names, not that he was Black, not even that he was an African-American, but on being a Canadian. I just told you, going all the way back to the history of the world, when they, in 1866, when they divided up Africa, all those Blacks started not proclaiming their being Black. They say, as I said, when they went to tribalism, and religion. And then go to Jamaica. What's a Jamaican? See, they come up with all these names. What's the difference between a Black coming to America and spending all this time talking about Jamaica and one talking about Canada? They never go to the core issue. Every competing group says you should, if you're going to be a competitive group and acquire wealth and power, you must go to your greatest strength. Your greatest strength is your greatest characteristic and identification. And your identification, your greatest one, is not where you came from. It's not Canada. It's not Jamaica. It's not even Africa. It's what you are as an individual. Your greatest identification is that one characteristic, which is your skin color, your Blackness. That is your greatest characteristic. Not that you came from Canada, not that you identify with Canada, not that you identify with Jamaica, not that you identify with Africa. Right now in America, it's your skin color. Jews, they do this with Jews. Jews' greatest identification is the Jewish religion, Judaism. They don't try to identify Catholicism or Mormonism or Hinduism or anything else. They stay strictly with their greatest commonality. Jews are whites. The default setting for rich and empowerment in this country, the default setting is white and wealth. That's where it is. So they're going to stick with Judaism just as their greatest characteristic as a white people to get more wealth. Black folk identifying with being, I'm from Africa, I'm from Jamaica, I'm from the Caribbean, I'm from Nigeria. That's why they can't come together. They'll never win under those inappropriate behavior patterns.
Sorry, Dr. Anderson. I know I was muted for a second. My apologies. I'll tell you, Dr. Anderson, I think that, that Black pride issue, and this is why I tell everybody in here, I hope you get your kids reading books like Powernomics early. That Black pride issue, knowing who you are, which is the topic that you began discussing, right? Knowing who you are, that starts with somebody telling you who you are, right? Like if you don't if somebody, or better yet, if somebody misidentifies you early, then you'll never know who you are. You're gonna think you're somebody else. And that's why education is so important. You know, so a child who reads Powernomics or any books written by Black people, you know, they're reading yourself, maybe reading Marcus Garvey, reading other books about, you know, about what it means to be Black. That child, you can't lead that child astray when they become an adult, because they know who they are. They say, well, so you say to them, look, no, you're supposed to be this, this, and this. You're part of that group. And they say, no, I know who I am. I'm actually part of this group over here. But if a child grows up without learning who they are, and then they're going to spend their life trying to fit in. They're going to try to fit into any group that will accept them. And that's when you see all these Hollywood actors who love to marry white women. They don't want nothing to do with Black women, or people that are doing things for every other community except for ours. And I really think that it's a psychological game that's played on them very early. And I think it's one where we have to be direct and forceful about reminding them who they are, and also with our own children, making sure they know who they are. And I want to ask you another question.
Boyce, let me jump on that point. That's a very good point, because Black people have only really, truly wanted to be Black only during a very brief period in American history. Did you know that? They never really wanted to be Black. Can you name a time when Black folk wanted to be Black? I know, I'm gonna tell you what it is in a minute, but what would you think it was? When was that period they didn't mind and was appreciative of their color and enjoyed being Black?
I want to say the 1960s, but I feel like you're gonna throw an answer like you give me an answer that'll surprise me, like slavery, something like that.
No, it's only for a 20-year period. See, they came out of slavery, starting like about 1915 when W.E. Du Bois started talking about after the New York Conference and what do you call the Nigerian group? What is it called? What's the river? Niagara Falls. And he came back. And they were trying to figure out how to come together because whites was lynching in from about early 1900s up to about 1910, 1912. They were lynching about 1 or 2 Black men a day in the United States. That's why the NAACP came into existence in 1909, and the Urban League jumped in about 1910, 1911. But by 1915, W.E. Du Bois said, we got to come together, and started coming together as a team and started practicing group politics. And so he started pushing this thing called group political understandings and commitments in about 1915. It's what they're going to call it Blackness. He wasn't calling it minorities. He wasn't calling it all this other kind of stuff to come up later. Then when he started put that emphasis on Blackness in politics, that was followed about 2 or 3 years later by Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey said, if you're going to start talking about Blackness in politics, let's have Blackness in economics. And so Marcus Garvey jumped into it by the late 1900s, by the end of the second decade. And then following that, then by the early 1920s, Carter G. Woodson jumped into it and said, hey, let's be Black all around. Let's talk about Black history, Black culture, and Black education. And then when he did that, that lasted, that caught on. And then about early 1930s, Elijah Muhammad jumped on and jumped into it. And they started talking about, well, let's have Black, if you're gonna have Black politics and Black economics, you're gonna have Black culture and Black education, let's have Black religions. They started coming up with the Black Muslims then. That jumped in to be Black. And then by the late 1930s and early 1940s, they started the whole thing with the Black artists and Black entertainers. They started called the Renaissance group. They started putting an emphasis on Black poetry and Black writings. That's the only time they wanted to be Black. But guess what? It ended by the late 1930s and 1940s. You know what happened? Why it ended? Because the Black politicians, Black ministers, and Black civil rights leaders that came out of the Urban League, NAACP, said that's too much Blackness. We can't stand all this Blackness. We're coming out of the Great Depression. We lost a lot of our businesses because we had 10 or 20 times more businesses in 1920 than we got today. So the Depression wiped out a lot of our industries and businesses. And rather than going back and try to rebuild those businesses in the late 1930s after the Depression ended, these 3 elements, politicians, civil rights leaders, and ministers, says that's too much Blackness. We got to learn how to get along with whites. We're going to come up with a new idea called universality. Let's talk about how we can get along with everybody. We don't need any more business in the Black community. We don't need to rebuild our own business. Yes, we lost our mattress factories, our broom factories, our hair processing factories, our movie theaters, our bus companies, our cab companies. We lost everything of value. And that, but let's not rebuild it. Let's now let whites come into our communities and let them rebuild and give us jobs. And so, what they call universality. And so by the early 1940s, that word universality switched over and it became integration, social integration. And so in the 1940s, where Black folk had the biggest, best baseball teams in America, they had two big leagues, but nobody could beat them in the baseball. Nobody could beat them in football. Nobody could beat blacks in basketball. And blacks said, we can't have all this blackness. Nobody can beat us. So why do we always want to beat everybody? We need to, let's integrate. And so by 1946, then Branch Rickey said, "I tell you what I'll do. I'll help you, Black folk. I'll help you achieve your universality. What I'll do is that if you were to get rid of your baseball teams, both of your leagues, get rid of all your equipment, fire all your managers and coaches, and all those blacks that nobody can beat, get rid of all of them. And what we'll do, and we'll integrate, let one of your boys come play with us." That was Jackie Robinson. And let that one black come and join us as whites. That way we make sure he's a minority. He can't do anything, have no power and wealth. We can ridicule him, do anything we want. And did the same thing with the black basketball teams. Nobody could beat our boys playing basketball. They said under universality, which is social integration, let's come and be social. Let's get along. Get rid of all your basketball teams and basketball leagues and join us. And they did that. Then one guy came, Abe Saperstein, says, "Hey, if black folk that stupid, all those black basketball players, I'm gonna start me a league and call them the Harlem Globetrotters. And I'm gonna hook them up and we'll go around the world and show that nobody can beat them. Those boys are so damn good, they could kick a damn basketball into the basket. They didn't have to throw it in there. They could do anything they want with balls, all kinds of tricks and stuff. Nobody could beat blacks in basketball, football, or baseball, but black folk wanted to socially integrate, which was a universality, and that's been nailing their butts ever since. They can't go over that. It's like a disease. It's injected into them. Universality, get along with everybody. And that's why when we get a chance, a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to read a couple of paragraphs out of Powernomics and show you what I mean. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, well, let me remind everybody who I'm speaking with. I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson, author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. His website is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. I want to remind everybody, please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't done that, please hit the thumbs up button. And some of you are asking, what kind of books do we have for children? Well, we've got these excellent financial workbooks for children, which will get your children ahead of the curve when it comes to economics. We have every grade band covered. The books cover stocks, investing, and also the fundamentals of money. So if you want to give your child a gift that will last a lifetime and give them something productive to do in the summer, then you go visit financialworkbooks.com. That's financialworkbooks.com. The reason that's important is because a lot of us are going to spend money, lots of money, sending our children to football camp, sending our children to basketball camp, sending our children to cheerleading camp. But when your children are at the age of 30, they're not going to usually make money playing basketball, throwing a football, or doing cheerleading. They are going to be in a position where they're going to need to have economic intelligence so that they don't end up like the 2 or 3 people this week who've been blowing up my cell phone trying to borrow money because they can't pay the rent, right? So for your little girls, it's very important that you give them financial literacy so they're not going out and sleeping with some man so they can get the bills paid. And your sons need to learn financial literacy because this white man ain't never hiring black people. You know, Dr. Anderson, and I like to go to that page, but I'm gonna tell you, one of the things that I've been telling black men in general, we talked earlier about the fact that 45% of all black men in Chicago between the ages of 20 and 24, 45% are unemployed and they're not in school. Now, if these were white people, it would be a national crisis. They would fix that issue immediately. Chicago has a black mayor. She ain't said nothing about it. Ain't nobody in Chicago said nothing about it because they say, well, those are just black men. Those are just niggas. Who cares what they're going through? Well, what I've been telling people is that for the black man, the only solution is to learn how to start businesses because they're never going to come take care of you. They're never going to come and have your back. They're never going to come and do right by you. So you got to do right by yourself. So that's why Powernomics is so important for us, not just to learn, but to practice this. So Dr. Anderson, I'll let you go ahead. And if you have something to say about that, feel free, please.
I want to underscore what you just said. I think you're one of the best in the business for teaching our people how to manage their budgets and how to individually create a financial base you know, with their own family, with their own people. And you're excellent at that. As a matter of fact, when people ask me about, Dr. Anderson, can you give me some ideas about how to manage my money and do this? I don't do that. You got to go to Boris Watkins. Boris Watkins is one of the best ones I know in the country. They teach you how to use your money and use it to make money and make money. I said, you go to him, not me. I said, I talk about social economics, strictly about as a group, because racism is a group phenomenon. It is a competitive relationship between groups of people. So I stay strictly at the group level, but you're one of the best in the country, but teaching people, say, at an individual level, here's how you start to bring your family together and gaining some wealth and power and independence as a family and as a family unit and as an individual. So I'm proud of you doing that. And that's why I always tell people to go to you to get some solutions. But what I'm going to tell you in the book, pick up the Power Nomics book and go to page 192.
Everybody, if you got your Powernomics book, open up your Bibles to page 192. Like they do in church. I tell you, go to Jeremiah 6:43. All right, let me see here. All right, so
go down to the mid-page where it says know your competitors.
Okay.
And that's what I was telling you about. That black folk have never understood who their competitors are. That's why they're busy talking about, you know, these very broad, ambiguous terms about I'm an alpha, I'm a kappa, I'm a college graduate, I'm from Nigeria, I'm from Africa, I'm a Kenyan. They never, and then Black Americans, I'm a Tiger Woods, I'm a Calibation, I'm anything except being Black. And therefore they think they got friends, and black folk have no friends and no enemies because they don't know who they are. They have no self-interest. So they're willing to carry everybody's water. They'll carry every group's water. They'll carry the water for the gays, the midgets, the humpback, the legends. If you got a hemorrhoid, they'll carry your water. If you got ingrown toenails, they'll carry your water. But they'll never carry water for black folk. They don't know who they are, who their competitors are. So they keep helping, they're aiding their competitors rather than their own people. So do me a favor. Would you let me molest your intelligence and ask you to read, know your competitors, read about the first paragraph and the half down to where it's like 80 is. Read that out loud to your audience, would you? Start with to promote.
Absolutely. To promote its own self-interest, a group should only select for allies those who will support the group and will not benefit from its demise. There is an orchestrated effort to avoid Black issues and to supplant them with Hispanics and other minorities. In 1972, the National Hispanic Party conceived a plan to subordinate Black Americans by the year 2000 by bringing in a layer of minority ethnic groups between whites and Blacks. The Hispanic empowerment strategy is to track and copy everything that Black Americans do politically and economically, then offer Hispanics as a more socially acceptable alternative to Blacks.
Okay, and read the next little paragraph, about 2 sentences after that, Boris, if you can.
Absolutely. Like Asian, Arab, European, gay, handicapped, and women's organizations, Hispanic organizations do not promote a Black agenda, nor do they equate Black and Hispanic interests. Okay.
Now, see, I hopefully your group understand what I'm saying. Now, how do we deal with that? Let's go over in the Powernomics book. Let's go over a couple of pages. Now go over to page 204. Here's how you deal with that, what you just read. That's why now you're going to see Asians, Hispanic, gays, everybody running for elected offices, even for the president of the United States. Because if Obama ran, then every gay, every midget, every peg leg, every physically handicapped person going to come out of the woodworks to run for the president since Obama. They're going to copycat Black folk. Now go over to page 204 in Powernomics. And do me a favor and read down about that first paragraph again. I hate to do that because time is of the essence and with you.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Okay, so would you do me a favor and read that for me?
Political action step
7.
Okay. Political action step number 7, block vote based upon quid pro quo agreements between politicians, their parties, and Black people. The strongest weapon in Black America's political arsenal is the block vote. Although it is small, it has great political potency because it is the nation's only block vote. No other group, not women, Hispanics, senior citizens, or whites, vote as a block. These voter groups are not loyal to a national party or national parties and rarely give more than 40 to 50% of their vote to any specific political party. Black Americans are the exception. They have the sole distinction of typically aligning 95% of their vote with a single national political party. For instance, from 1870 until the late 1930s, nearly 100% of this country's black voters voted as a bloc for the Republican Party. From the late 1940s until the present time, nearly 100% of the country's black voters vote for Democratic candidates. Over the course of these 40 years, neither of the national political parties nor any white office holders have sponsored a program or public policy strictly and solely designed to address the needs and interests of Black Americans. They have never been paid a quid pro quo for their party loyalty and block votes.
Okay, thank you. Now, so trying to connect all the things I've been talking about with you this afternoon, do you see the connections between going all the way back to being the first people on earth and having Africa and having all the wealth in Africa? You see the point when you and people took it from you through a policies of doctrine of unequal exchange. They took everything from you, and after the end of the Civil War, when you got the second Constitution, which is 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the Civil Rights Laws, the 15th Amendment. They took that from you on the doctrine of unequal exchange. Gave you nothing. Wouldn't even give you 40 acres of mule. But at the same time, he's inviting all the people in the world to come into America and get two things called American Dream: free land for everybody but black folk. And then they say that once you get that land, use black folks' labor. So in your terms, for what you produce, what you talk about in your school, the basic concept of wealth is labor. Labor, it produces wealth. Without labor, there is no wealth. That's the basis foundation for wealth. That's why white folk now are so rich. That's why they inherited almost 100% of all the wealth in this nation. And they've locked 87% of it into their communities, their churches, their businesses, their corporations, their businesses, their municipal bonds. Their Wall Street is locked in to whites, where 87% of this nation's wealth is locked into the white society under those devices. And they got it all while black folk out singing and dancing, telling jokes and playing with balls. And they're rapping instead of mapping. That's your dilemma, is that you got to figure out how to get wealth. And they got it from your labor. And now what they tell you is your labor is obsolete because they're going to bring in other people. They don't need your labor anymore. And because for a little while, they're going to use Hispanics as cheap labor or Asians. That's going to be followed with robots. Robots going to replace you. You're obsolete. You're obsolete and unnecessary. And next week, in the coming weeks, I'm going to show you how wealth was built around the world. And I'm going to show you also how the civil rights movement started in 1965. All these problems you're talking about right now, you know where they came from? It came out in 1965 civil rights law. All this stuff about gayness and women, all these issues that you're talking about right now, the breaking down of the institutions, and all that and everything that Donald Trump's and all of them came about as a direct result of 1965 civil rights laws. But I'll break that down in the future dates with you.
Well, well, everybody, by the way, I want you to know I'm talking to Dr. Claud Anderson. He's the author of the books Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, Dirty Little Secrets, and the Black History Reader. I hope that you'll go take a look at some of his books at powernomics.com. Also, he runs a think tank, the only think tank that I know of that does a good job of really advocating solely for African-American people. And it's the Harvest Institute. The URL is harvestinstitute.org. That's harvestinstitute.org. Make sure you support that. Also, hit the thumbs up button if you haven't hit the thumbs up button, or the share button and things like that. And also, if you want to support the growth of intelligent Black media like this, we could really use your support. You can go to intelligentblackpeople.com. That's intelligentblackpeople.com. Please become a patron because we can really use your support in pushing the message around the world. So, Dr. Anderson, one of the things you talked about reminded me of something I read in Powernomics this morning. You were talking about how you had people abandon, you had the white flight where they abandoned the urban communities, and then about 20 years later they realized, wait a minute, there's valuable stuff in the inner cities. There's valuable property. There's like waterfront property. There's all these other assets there that we can have. And so you mentioned a book by Michael Porter from Harvard Business School, where he basically explained to them that that there's a lot of wealth, a lot of resources in inner city communities. So that's when a lot of the gentrification began, and a lot of the so-called business development began. And you talked about how the business development that is presented to us, and they tell us that it benefits us, right? Like they tell us it's good for us that Walmart or Starbucks is building a store in the hood, or that that this company's coming in to develop the real estate. But what happens is they get all the wealth and the ownership. We get jobs and places to spend our money. So they get opportunities to own capital, build wealth for their family, and to bring money this way. We only get the chance to give our labor away as well as our spending power away, all of our money away. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. See, the white society got a game going. As I told you, when they captured the primary base of wealth in this nation, going all the way back to the land, that's extremely important. But I can't get black folk to understand that the wealth of this nation was in the land, in two things: the land and free black labor, free land and free black labor. That it made it inheritable, where it's passed on. That all the money they extracted, the wealth they extracted out of black labor, and the wealth they extracted out of holding all that land, has been passed on to 21 succeeding generations of whites. And every 20 years, it doubles and triples in value. Now, if you never got in the land, what are you passing on, boys? What are you passing on? You're passing on the stuff the civil rights leaders have misled you into. You're passing on things that have no value. You're focusing on food stamps, welfare, public housing, a job. You cannot pass those things, and there's no wealth in it. There's no wealth in those things. And you're out fighting for those things and marching for what? Well, we're marching for civil rights. There is no wealth in civil rights. There's no wealth in civil rights. Nobody's coming to America looking for civil rights. They're coming here to get enrichment. That's why it's called social capital. The minute those immigrants cross into this country, their social capital, their wealth base goes up sometimes 5 to 10 times what it was before they got here. A Mexican running across the border tonight, once he runs across that border and climbs at the wall what Donald Trump is fighting for, the minute he set foot on the other side, his capital wealth, his personal wealth, it goes from zero up to something like about $80,000 immediately. And when he brings that in, he also brings in cultural values. He can go build a business. He's got a culture he can build around. That's why you got Mexican towns, a little Havanas, little Cuba. They build businesses. Mexican restaurants, shops, and everything. They practice group economics. Black folk don't have a capital base. And so consequently, they're not playing the game to win. Ask me that question again. There's another point I got off. I didn't even go that far.
Well, you were talking about how they will do what they call economic development in black neighborhoods, but
I got it.
Jobs and spending.
Oh, got it. Okay, so what they did now when they acquired all this wealth and realized that's where racism came. That race was over. Whites now owned and controlled everything by 1860. They had all control of all the value in the country. They had almost 100% ownership of everything of value in the country. Now to go from that point, let's go up to about 1950 when the civil rights movement started. And white folks and black folks says, well, all we don't want. We know you got all the money in your pocket. We know you got everything in your banks. We know you got everything in your checking accounts. We know you got everything in your buildings and in your stock markets. But all we want is social integration and universality. We just want to get along with you. And white folks said, fine, but we don't want to get along with you. So what we'll do now, since we got everything attached to us that we own and control, what do you want to do? We don't want to socialize with you. So when you start trying to talk about integrating these major urban cities, we're going to abandon those cities. Now, but once we abandon them, we're not going someplace where we can spend money. We're going to go where we can make money. Now, at that time, there's no such thing called suburbs. There were no suburbs in those days, in up to 1950, no such thing as a suburb. So white folks, they got all that free land outside the cities, free, cheap land, undeveloped, rural land. They said, we got all the money and the wealth. What we'll do, let's abandon these urban cities and let's go out and get that free lands. And they set up what they call concentric circles, like you drop a pebble in the water and it radiates out, creates circles of wealth building. So whites create a thing called concentric circles of wealth building. You drop a pebble, a rock in a pool of water, it ripples out. So those cities were right where they dropped the stone. And as white folk moved out from the inner cities, they moved to the suburbs. Then from later on, they moved to the exurbs and all this kind of stuff. But each time they moved, they got wealth because the land was cheaper. They kept moving cheaper and taking the money they got from slavery and kept multiplying it in value as they moved further out. And they took all the money with them. And so those cities were abandoned. And they practiced what's called a burnt scorched field, a scorched earth policy. Said we're going to take everything out of those inner cities. We're going to take out the money, the wealth, the industries, the voting power, everything of value. All the major corporations, we're going to move to the suburbs. So they moved to the suburbs and built suburbs and abandoned those cities. The only thing we'll leave black folk here as a population. If they want to own and control it, fine. But they're never having the wealth and power to be able to run them effectively because we're going to cut off the money. Then that later on, as some blacks started moving to the suburbs, that little ring of circle from the migration patterns, they've moved out further. The whites then moved to say, oh, we can move to the experts, or we're going to move our factories and industries to third world nations so black folk can get their hands. We keep moving the wealth. So all of a sudden, Ford Motor Car Company and all these major industries, they started moving those factories to Mexico and to French and to Korea and every place else. Burger King and McDonald's, they moved the wealth out. Now, black folk got those inner cities, but they never had an income base. They moved the income base out. So the black elected officials never had a sufficient amount of money to run an urban city. Now, after black folk have proven after about 40 years that they could not run those cities by the lack of funds because they've been stripped under scorched earth policy. They've been stripped of everything. Now whites said, now we still got all the wealth and money that's always been in our pockets, always in our backpack, always in our trunks, in our corporations, our community. Let's go back in and get some more freebies. Now black folk can't improve those houses. They can improve that land in urban cities that run down. All the property is boarded up, abandoned, weeds growing as tall as you are, fences. Let's go in and take them back over again and get it free. So now they call it gentrification. The 5 things they use. One is called gentrification. That will be followed by privatization, and then also by regionalization, which means what they'll do is they go in and gentrify all that abandoned property in those urban cities. They get it free. In Detroit, Michigan, they had buses running around every Saturday bringing whites from the suburbs and the exurbs. They come into Detroit, Michigan, pick up all the free land they want, all the free abandoned properties, the vacant lots. They can get them for less than $10 or $15 a piece because they use the money that they stole out of the cities when they first left the cities and rebuilt that city. Now Detroit, Michigan is almost totally owned by whites. It used to be 92% blacks. Blacks own nothing. Same thing in DC. DC was a 78% black city when I came here. Now those homes, beautiful homes blacks used to have, that all they needed was repairment and upgrading. Whites gonna buy those things for about a nickel on a dollar. And they're gonna rebuild them and gonna sell them for $1 million a piece or more. And then the black folk will think they made some money by selling them and running to PG County. And they're gonna soon take over PG County, do the same. They're gonna gentrify PG County, and they're gonna privatize all the land and build gambling casinos and all kind of major complexes out there. Blacks gonna be shut down again back where they were in 1910, as I told you earlier. When the Urban League and NAACP came into existence in 1910, black folk wealth building is going backwards, is minimizing. They're gonna have a snowball's chance of being a competitive group because they don't know who they are, what their self-interests are. They don't know who they're competing against. They're competing against immigrants coming to this country. Immigrants are freeloaders. They're coming in looking for unearned benefits. They're getting all the rights and opportunities. And they come in conclusion, my long speech to you, they get 5 benefits that black folk have never had. Every immigrant that came in, whether coming in 1882 or coming in now in 2002, they get 5 benefits that black folk would never get because the black folk don't know who they are, don't know who they're competing against. They're going out siding with their competitors. Rather than seeing a white woman as a competitor, black women wrote in join them. Rather than seeing that gays competing against them, they start supporting gays. So here's the 5 things that they'll get, Dr. Watkins. 1, if you come in this country now as an immigrant, you can be classified as a minority, equal to black folk, even though you just ran across the border last night and your capital base went straight up. You made wealth by coming to the United States. Black folk didn't get any wealth. So by coming across the border from another country, you get wealth. Black folk here in this country, they don't get anything for it. Now, 2, what do you get? You now, because you're classified as whites, that all immigrants come to this country, basically all classified as whites. Everybody's classified as whites, but black people. As a matter of fact, Hispanics were classified as whites up to 1970, and now only 0.2% of anybody speaking Spanish is called blacks. They call themselves, they're classified as whites. Arabs are whites, Hispanics are whites. Asians were on probation up until about 1886 to be white. Now they are whites too. American Indians are classified as whites. They get those benefits. That's 3 benefits they get over black folk. 4thly, they get a benefit because they got a culture. They bring a culture in here, as I told you, called cultural capital. They can then build businesses around their culture. They can build businesses by identifying with their home, by their country of origin, by bringing in products that are peculiar to their culture, to their group, and they build businesses and industries around. And lastly, they also get benefits by falling into this bag they call diversity, saying, let us be equal to black folk, even though we came in the country last night. And all those benefits that blacks have been fighting for, all those social things, not economic, all those social things they've been fighting for under universality, we'll be included in that. And we're going to copycat blacks in every respect and displace blacks. And pretty soon, once they do that and get some wealth, And guess they didn't come in looking for politics. Once they get the wealth, then they're going to join politics. They're going to displace all these blacks in elected office. All these black mayors and black city council people and black congressmen, they better get their butts together because they're going to get shot out of office, public office, within about another 10 years. They're going to be stripped out. They're going to be replaced by Asians, Arabs, and Hispanics. You're not going to have that many blacks running anything anymore in about the next 10 years. Count on it. And in terms of unemployment, black unemployment is not what they keep telling you. Black unemployment now is almost 50% in these areas. It's structural unemployment that's never counted. They're BSing black folk by reporting that your unemployment rate is decreasing. It is stabilized as unreported, unstructured, uncompensated, unameliorated, and indifference towards black folk.
Everybody who's watching, I'm speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson, author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. He runs the Harvest Institute. A lot of conversation about reparations has been happening. He's been fighting on reparations for a very long time. He's actually filed lawsuits and put his own money behind these lawsuits. So your support is appreciated and necessary for us to be able to really fight these battles. So if you have it in your heart to support the Harvest Institute, I hope you'll go to harvestinstitute.org. That's harvestinstitute.org. Also, powernomics.com is where you can buy his books. I believe personally that everybody in America, every black person in America should have his books. You guys know I have a book coming out on Malcolm X's birthday, but I don't want you to buy any of my books until you buy Powernomics at least. Make sure that you take a look. It's better than any book you've ever read by any person who's not black. And also, speaking of being black, we actually have a social media platform. I don't know if you know, Dr. Anderson, we've been getting, black folks have been getting kicked off of Facebook for freedom of speech. And so what we did was we created a couple years ago, this site is called Black Enough. And basically it's Are You Black Enough? And
That's good. That's good.
This is the Black Facebook. And so if you guys want to join Black Enough, go on in there. We're having free conversations. And this is going to be our gathering spot for when all hell breaks loose. When the white folks finally start really tearing into us and banning everybody from Facebook, you can go to Black Enough and you'll be able to do what you want, be free and everything else. So feel free to take a look at that. So Dr. Anderson, let me ask you a last question before we go. Okay, so you talked about the doctrine of unequal exchange. You talked about gentrification as an extension of what happened to us in Africa, where we had all these resources, all these valuable assets, and they traded with us, and they ended up taking what was valuable to us, right? Maybe because we didn't see the value. I think the doctrine of unequal exchange also exists when I watch this trade war between Trump and China. The Chinese, in my opinion, I believe the Chinese practice powernomics better than the United States ever did. I believe that the Chinese are very protective of their economy. They don't let you come and take their resources. I'll tell you this, Dr. Anderson, let me tell you the story. Everywhere, Facebook is everywhere in the world, but they do not allow you to use Facebook in China. They have their own Facebook. Uber, I can take an Uber anywhere in the world, but I cannot take an Uber in China. They have another company called Didi Chuxing that ran Uber out of town. Google is everywhere in the world, but you can't get Google in China because they got their own Google. So, and also even on immigration policy, things like that, the Chinese are not going to let anybody, they don't have open borders. They don't say, well, anybody can come in here and get the benefits and just take our stuff or whatever. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, have you thought about China over the years?
Again, to some degree, even though I never like to beat up on black folk, I'd rather go after the black overclass that should be more responsible for their own people. But to a large degree, we are also responsible for that. And see, first of all, why would blacks be using Ubers in the first place? Because you see, that's something that was stolen from them. That was stolen from black folk under the doctrine of unequal exchange. Do you know up until about the late 1950s, we had Uber drivers in most of these urban cities. Did you know that? They weren't called Uber. You know what they called jitneys. You ever hear that? They were called jitney. They weren't called Uber. Black folk got to wake up and smell it. That's why I put out these books, those 5 books. What's called a library pack. That explains all these things to black folk. In Chicago, you can go in Chicago. When I was going to school, you can go up down to any major street. Any black that had a decent car, he drove up and down the street from one end of town all the way downtown all day long. And you could get in there and pay a jitney. It was only 10 cents. You just get in the car, get in this back seat, and 2 or 3 other people sitting there making a difference. And you rode from one end of town. It was a miniature buses. They were called jitneys. Now black folk are so fascinated that you got a $1 billion industry called Uber. I said, can't be that damn dumb unless you got a license. The people under doctrine exchange, everything you got, they take it from you. And you say, oh, that's wonderful. I'm gonna call it Uber. Why don't you call it jitneys? Go back to jitneys. Now, like in some of my family, we had Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We had 2 bus companies. Wait a minute, let me go back. We had 2 cab companies. White people had 2 cab companies. You know, they had white people at that time up until the civil rights movement that took everything awry, took black folk down the back alley and mugged them and then closed up the alley. But before integration came in North Carolina, let's say Winston-Salem. See, Durham, North Carolina was a real Wall Street for black folk. Later on became Tulsa. Tulsa, people think Tulsa was a Wall Street. No, it wasn't. Blacks in Tulsa, Oklahoma was imitating blacks in Durham, North Carolina. That's why all your big black insurance companies and mortgage companies were in North Carolina. But I don't want to get in that point. Let's go back to Winston-Salem. Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We had our own black, wholly independent communities that black folk ran away from. Nowadays, they don't want to be black anymore. We had black communities because white folk, through racism, made us do what we should have been doing normally and naturally. We owe white folks a debt of credit for that. They made us doing Jim Crow surveys do what we should have been doing out of natural instinct. So in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, whites had 2 cab companies. They had the yellow cab and the bluebird, okay? Whites had 2 cab companies. In the black community, we had 2 cab companies. We had the Campbell City and the Harris cab companies. Whites had their own movie theaters. They had three movie theaters. Guess what? We had 2 movie theaters, our own movie theaters. And guess what? But we built the bus companies. They didn't have the white bus companies in. Instead of jitneys or Ubers, you know what we did? We had a safe bus company. Our safe bus company, there wasn't just 1 or 2 buses, Dr. Watkins. We had over 500 buses. 500 buses that serviced Winston-Salem for both the whites and the black neighborhoods. And guess what? Because we practice group economics, what now I call powernomics. We practice group economics, powernomics, which means all the buses were ours, owned by us. All our drivers were black, mechanics were black, electricians were black, administrators were blacks. But whites rode our buses. You know what killed us off with our cab companies? You know what killed off our cab companies, our movie theaters, and our bus companies? Social integration, where all of a sudden blacks want to go back to universality that I told you came up in the 1930s. We don't want to have any black baseball teams and black football teams and black basketball teams because nobody could beat us. We want to just fire all these thousands of black folk that had our own businesses and let one white black boy go play with whites. Now that's progress. How the hell can you go from thousands to 1 and that's progress? And how we're going backwards. You see everything upside and backwards because we don't have a group self-interest. We don't know who our competitors are. We don't know who our friends are. We don't understand the nature of everything. That's why I wrote the library pack. For our 5 books for $99 on powernumbers.com. Get those books. They start reading. They understand this. Uber should have never come into existence in the black neighborhoods. Black neighborhoods right now in these poor cities. And if they had a sense of community, a sense of togetherness, support and belief and trust in each other, and quit shooting and cutting each other and say, we are special people. We're exceptional people. We're going to get some limousine-like cars. They're going to drive up and down all our major streets and take us anywhere we want it, from downtown to where we want to go to our own communities. But if we build our own communities, you don't have to go downtown. You go 5 or 10 blocks down and get everything you wanted. Have your own shoe shop, clothes shops, drug stores, your own medical centers, your own barber shops, own tailor shops, cafes, restaurants, movie theaters. And you won't have to be riding a damn Uber, riding over to the white community and back. I just cannot believe I've lived this long and wind up in this kind of a situation. The stuff I've been preaching in politics at the highest level, in education, economics, for 60 years, now I got to say it to black folk over and over again. Quit chasing everybody else's butt and start being responsible for your own people. Looking at your own people and taking care of them. You don't need Ubers if you had your own damn communities. You cannot have a business community. I keep telling people, Doc, we're gonna start a business. You can't start business unless you have a damn community. Nobody's gonna, if you have just started going to a black neighborhood, got 1 store, black store on the north side, 1 black store on the south side, another black business on the downtown. You ain't gonna be in business more than 2 years. You gotta aggregate your businesses. It's called ethno aggregation. Pool all your businesses so black people can get up on a Saturday morning, drive right down 3 or 4 blocks down into one spot, get out, park their car and walk around for hours, finding every damn store they need owned by black folk, by any product they want, and expecting and demanding that those black folks treat them with courtesy, with fairness and quality products. That's how you become economically competitive and make your money bounce 8 to 12 times in your own communities before it goes downtown. That's what I'm saying to it, and I'll give you another 2-hour speech.
All right. Well, I hope everybody was listening, and I hope that everybody was taking notes. Just so you know, when we do Powernomics, typically it's Powernomics Thursday, but today it's Powernomics Wednesday. When we do Powernomics Wednesday, be ready to take notes. Bring your copy of Powernomics, because as you can see, Dr. Anderson has us opening up the book, and I love it, because you can tell me yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. Do you get this anywhere else? Is there any school you've ever gone to, any university? I know you spent $100,000 going to college. I know that you went to the public school and all that. I know you maybe watched a bunch of BET and all that. Is there anywhere in this country that you can get what you get from Claud Anderson? Yes or no? Right. For you, most of you, the answer is no. And that's why we do this here. That's why we do this here. And also in the spirit of building Black and buying Black, the reason, you guys know I have to do the little commercial breaks, and I like to be transparent about that. The reason we do the commercial breaks, the reason we do the promotions, is because we're seeking to engage in the doctrine of equal exchange, not unequal exchange, equal exchange. What we say to you, look, we'll give you, something that will change your life. We'll give you assets that will benefit your children forever. All we're asking you to do is something very simple. We're just asking you to take the amount of money that you spend with white folks and just put, 5-10% of that back toward the stuff that we're working on. Because you guys know how serious we are. You know how dedicated we are. You know that, y'all know, if you've been watching me every day, I'm up every day, every morning, going into the middle of the night, Dr. Anderson. I'll be talking to him in the middle of the day, pushing stuff out, writing articles, all of that. I've been doing this for 12 years. And it was doing it for years before that. We just didn't have the internet. And so I think this is a great opportunity. And so that's why you hear me consistently every 10 to 12 minutes. I'll stop and I'll let you guys know how you can support what we're doing. So a couple of things I'd like for you to do if you want to consider it. One, Powernomics.com is the place where Dr. Anderson's books are located. He has a library pack that's $99. We can get a whole bunch of books, all of his books and a DVD for just $99. So if that's something that interests you, I hope that you'll at least do that before you spend hundreds of dollars sending your kids to football camp or money going to see the next Disney movie, things like that. This ain't a Disney movie because this ain't a fairy tale. This is real life. This is a vision, okay? This is a vision. A vision to me is a fairy tale when you are thinking about it. It is a fantasy, but it can be turned into reality. But reality comes from hard work. The second thing I'd like for you to do, if you're watching, whatever channel you're watching from, please share this video on your social media. Everybody's got social media. If you have social media, let me know. Yes, I do have social media. Please share this around so other people can see this. Also, if you're on the Black Financial Channel, theblackfinancialchannel.com, some of you are watching there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Everybody right now, please hit the subscribe button or a share button or a like button or something so that the channel can grow. We're building the Black Financial Channel because we want to build one of the strongest Black financial networks in the world. And I believe we can do it. I believe we can have hundreds of thousands of subscribers on the Black Financial Channel within a year or two. That's our long-term project. Why? Well, because think about this. You see Bloomberg, you see Forbes, you see all of this stuff out here. White folks talking about money all the time, talking Powernomics all the time, talking about planning and ownership all the time. Where do Black people have platforms like that where they're talking about ownership all the time? You got big sites, and I'm sorry, Dr. Anderson, I'm in my soliloquy, but you got big websites. The biggest YouTube channels and Facebook pages you got in your community are like World Star Hip Hop, where they got these punk ass men videotaping women fighting until they pull their wigs out and they rip their bras off and all this stuff. This ghetto shit, this ghetto ass, ignorant ass, retarded ass shit. And that's what we're eating all the time. And so to me, if you're always eating shit, then you're probably going to be an ain't shit type person. If you eat shit, then you ain't shit. Then that's what's wrong with us. We are constantly consuming shit, and then we wonder why we become shitty people, why we live shitty lives, why we have shitty communities. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. So I want to build the Black Financial Channel so we can have places where we can get economic health food and get smarter and better and really win this game. So Powernomics.com, the BlackFinancialChannel.com. You guys know about Black enough. Dr. Anderson, I'll let you get the last word before you get out of here. I know you got a busy day.
Well, thank you, buddy. I'd like to say this too. I'm sure there's some place out there, even though I've never heard it, there are some people telling other people, Dr. Anderson always talk about Powernomics and the importance of wealth and aggregating and buying and controlling. and our own products and services and goods. But all that's not going to work because it ain't going to work because for 460 years it didn't work. So, and we never tried it, but it won't work. You got a lot of stupid people telling black folk the power numbers never work. But yet I said to the first time, you find me some of them that's saying that, who got, comparatively speaking, as much background in education, as much background in businesses and starting business and owning business, as much background in being at the highest levels of government, from the state to federal government, in the highest office and head and trade missions around the world, and representing presidents and governors. If they got something to say positive, tell them to say it to me, because I don't know any people that has much experience in all these areas I have for my 60 years of being in politics. So what I'm gonna say to it for black folk, it will work if you try it. And that's why it makes no sense to me. That's why I started Powernomics. If you got a $1.3 trillion annual disposable income, $1.3 trillion of dollars worth of annual disposable income as in Black America is passing through your hands every day, coming into your hands, but it's going between the fingers and leaking out, bleeding out. Why? Because even though that 1.3 trillion would make you probably the 10th richest nation on earth, comparatively speaking, Black folk in America could be equated to being the 10th richest, 11th richest nation on earth with $1.3 trillion budget every year of annual disposable income. But it moves through their fingers, they lose it. Why? Because just what you got through talking about. They get 98% of all that money, that $1.3 trillion that come in their hands, they give it to whites, Asian, Arabs, and Hispanics. They try to keep only 2%. Now, who in their right mind would have that kind of wealth passing through their hands annually and turn around and try to live off only 2% of it? And while they're enriching they don't know their friends and their neighbors and their competitors. That's why I had you to read that page out of Powernomics saying, know your competitors and know your enemies, who you're dealing with. They don't know it. So they give away 98% of the 1.3 trillion to other groups. That means those groups they are competing with, the whites, the Asians, the Arabs, and Hispanics, they are living off of two incomes. They're living off of double incomes. They're living off of 100% of their own money and 98% of Black people money. Whites are not putting anything. They put almost zero of their money into the Black communities. Asians put almost zero of their money into the Black communities. Arabs put almost zero of their money into the Black communities. Nobody's putting any money into the Black community. And the only way the little bit of money is coming in that Blacks can earn is probably coming from some social service, welfare, food stamps, public house, or some retirement funds. And I said, you give that away through a doctrine of unequal exchange. Those groups are giving you nothing, and they're extracting out 98% of everything coming into your community. You're enriching other people. Black folk have spent 460 years enriching everybody on earth except their own people. They've enriched the Europeans, the Asians, the Arabs, and Hispanics. They made everybody rich except themselves. And they can't make themselves rich because those who got the money and wealth don't know how to properly use it to build a wealth base in this nation for their own people and practice group-based economics to make their money circulate in their own communities, which they need to build, get away from this social integration crap, build their own communities, their own businesses and own industries and their own code of conduct, and make that money bounce 8 to 12 times. So that way, instead of having 1.3 trillion, they would have 13 or 100 trillion. See, they multiplied by 10 times, 10 times 1.3, you got over $100 trillion. You know how big and bad Black folk would be just economically? Just like I told you to vote in a block, spin in a block, spin in a block, buy in a, vote in a block and spin in a block. We can be an empowered people. We can be exceptional people, just like you're an exceptional teacher in economics. And I love you for that. And I'm proud to be on your program every week and tell my people to go get the books and read it so we can have an us too movement in America.
Yes, absolutely. The Us Too movement, by the way, the hashtag is Us Too. If you see me tweeting and stuff like that, I use the hashtags Us Too and Powernomics on a regular basis. I also tweet on reparations. I use that hashtag a lot. So feel free to do that. And also, of course, I use the Dr. Boyce Watkins hashtag if you ever want to join the conversation. So share your thoughts, share your opinions, and also go to powernomics.com, take a look at Dr. Anderson's books. They're Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, the Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. He has a great bundle pack that you can get all 5 books of the DVD for $99. It'll make a difference for your whole life. Also, everybody, before you go, please hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, subscribe button. If you're on the Black Financial Channel, make sure you subscribe, theblackfinancialchannel.com. You're right there. Just hit that subscribe button. Same thing for anybody that's on any platform. Subscribe. Also share. And if you want to support the growth of Black intelligent media throughout the world, you can go to intelligentblackpeople.com. That's intelligentblackpeople.com. So, and don't forget, we're on iTunes. So if you got iTunes, go find us on iTunes also. So thank you, Dr. Anderson. Good to see you, buddy. And I look forward to seeing you next week.
I'll see you next week. Have a
Yes,
blessed week.
sir. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.